This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How's it going? How you doing? Rob Barrett's my engineer. I am your host, Alice Stockton Rossini, and I am so happy you could be with us tonight, especially you, Rob. Thanks for coming. When I tell you, you never know what could happen in your life to inspire a book. You gotta believe me, because you won't believe what inspired Roseanne Diamond. I'll give you a hint. It's an insanely popular TV show that got her through some of her darkest days, and she lays it all out in her book entitled Holding My Hands and Saving My Life. Roseanne, take us from the top.
Well, it's about a journey I took from despair to fulfillment. It was a book that was written after my husband passed away, and when I suffered from extreme depression over his passing, at the same time I had to move. Another huge stress. I was diagnosed with breast cancer, another big stress. And business at that time was slow, another stress. And wasn't real happy about living. And just was going through that difficult time of deciding, what's this all about? How do you cope? And I just didn't seem to have the coping mechanisms. And just by luck, I started watching Dancing with the Stars, and it was through the dancers and their connection and their friendship and their sheer artistry that I was able to have something finally touch my soul and allow me to move from the despair, to go through the various stages of grief, and take my life back.
Through Dancing with the Stars?
Yes.
Through watching it?
Yes.
Just through watching it, not being a contestant, not being involved?
Not at all. It was season 18. It was when Max Chmerkovskiy danced with Meryl Davis, the Olympic gold medalist.
Okay.
Ice skater. She had won the gold medal.
Right.
And the book is broken, part of the book is broken into each of the dances and how each of those dances helped me to begin to feel of different types of emotions. One was trust. One was friendship, one was communication. And in watching them trust each other, it made me remember what it felt like to have somebody I trusted. The fact that they may not be there anymore brought on the tears and the grief. But again, as you go through those stages, you get your life back.
Does ABC know about this?
I have no idea.
I mean, this is the kind of thing you see on a newsstand in the grocery store. Dancing with the Stars saved my life. It's something that you might want to laugh at, but this truly helped you in a significant way, Roseanne.
Oh, it was huge, and the book has been is selling extremely well. And I do know for a fact that Meryl Davis and her family have the copies, because her mother called me and expressed how pleased she was with the book and how happy she was that her daughter had contributed to my helping to make me better.
That's amazing. How are you telling people about it?
Interestingly enough, Alice, last night I did a talk at a bereavement group, and there was a gentleman there whose wife had passed away 14 years ago, and one of the things is that they were ballroom dancers and how much he missed it. But what it did for the group last night was allow me to express my hurt and my pain and how I was able to get past it through a TV show. And so one gentleman talked about the fact that what helped him was watching basketball games. Another woman talked about she went to Yosemite, I guess it's a park.
Yeah, Yosemite National Park, yeah.
National Park, and that's when she was able to finally touch upon her grief and to move forward. So I'm talking at bereavement groups. I've been asked to talk at a number of libraries, and another person wants me to meet someone who is a TV announcer and talk to him. He's down in Washington, D.C., because like yourself, they think it's a story that could touch a lot of people.
Because it's not something you think of, Dancing with the Stars. I mean, Dancing with the Stars, people make fun of Dancing with the Stars. And here it's changed your life. It saved your life. That's amazing.
I'll tell you an interesting story. There is a very large group of people out there who believe in what we call the magic of Marilyn Mack. There was a connection between the two of them, and those two people together touched the hearts and souls of a whole group of people whose lives have been saved, just as myself, to some degree, by their connection. And their dancing transcended all levels to touch so many people. A young woman who watched from Brazil, I needed to get pictures. In the book, there are pictures and of each of the dances. And I was told by the publisher that I needed to be able to get permission from Disney, which was never going to happen. And this girl had done some watercolor sketches, and I said, if I send you pictures that I would like done, would you do that? So throughout the book, you'll see these beautiful, beautiful renderings of the dances of those two dancers. And Meryl's mother liked them so much, I had a set made for her and sent to her.
Roseanne, you're so thoughtful. You know what? Suffice it to say, you just never know what may save you from despair. Seriously. I mean, who knew Dancing with the Stars could be therapeutic? Our next author is all about the bow hunting, bow bending, bow history. George Copen wrote Bear Archery, Traditional Bows, A Chronological History. And it's a passion you've had for some time, right?
I bent my first bow in 1970. That's when I started, and I've had the affliction ever since. I'm 56 now.
You've had the affliction of bow hunting?
Yes, it is. It is an affliction. It gets into your blood.
Really? So it's like something you got to do?
Absolutely. It's a very, very powerful thing to shoot a bow. I fell in love with it immediately and have had that same passion for it for 40-some years.
This sounds like a history. I mean, you've really...
Yeah, you could say that.
You've studied this extensively.
Yes, the bows made by Bear Archery have always sort of like attracted me like a moth to a flame.
By Bear Archery in particular?
Yes, that's the only thing I'll ever shoot.
Explain that to me.
Well, the bows are beautiful handcrafted works of art. They're very smooth shooting bows. And just the feel of shooting a bow instinctively using your own natural abilities, eye-hand coordination, is almost like a Zen thing, a relaxation thing. It's best done when you're in a good mood and relaxed, and it can really put you in, it centers you, it's a motivational kind of thing.
Why should someone who has no interest in bows or bow hunting read this book?
I can tell you that if you take a child who's anywhere between 10 to 15 years old and you hand them a bow and some arrows and you put out some balloons for them to pop, they'll have the best day of their life and they'll remember it forever. I've seen it with kids so many times. So if you pick up this interest and maybe you have kids and you buy them a bow and you teach them this, it'll, account for, many, many hours on the weekends of enjoyment. And you might even start shooting one yourself. You know how boys can go out and throw a football around on a nice spring day and enjoy that outdoor activity. Well, the bow provides the same kind of an outdoor experience with, a little bit of use of your own natural talents in your mind and concentration and so forth. And that kind of centers you. As a bow hunter, the reason I shoot a bow is because at a young age I wanted to go hunt with a bow and arrow and use the challenge of a very primitive weapon to, go after game. And I've been fortunate enough to hunt all over the western U.S., northern U.S., all over Canada. I've hunted in Newfoundland. I've hunted in Alaska 3 times. And so the adventure, there's a real adventure that goes with the hunt. The idea of taking an animal with that equipment is one thing, but that's not really the target. The target is the journey, the adventure that you go on. And if you happen to be fortunate enough to be successful, that's icing on the cake.
Like how successful? Do you have like heads all over your house mounted?
Yes. I have heads mounted. I consider those memories. Those are not trophies. Those are memories of an adventure. And I have full respect and reverence for that animal. And I use the meat for sustenance. And for me, that head on the wall invokes memories of adventure and thrills. What makes the book special, I think, is that it's the only existing illustrated reference manual that allows people to pick up a bow, investigate it, go to the book, and identify what year that bow was made. And many, many people want to know that. They want to know the history of their bow. No other book has ever done that. Because my book is selling through Amazon.com, that's available worldwide. So I know a person who's bought it in France, another person who's bought it in the Czech Republic. It's available in Japan, Australia, and so forth.
All right, George, very good. Everything you've ever wanted to know about bear bows. Have you ever seen a nuclear power plant built right in the middle of a populated area and wondered why? Well, C.J. Roner is an industrial engineer, and he saw some questionable engineering practices firsthand and felt compelled to write about them in his book entitled Structure of Sand. Questionable and downright dangerous, right, C.J.?
Absolutely. I worked at General Electric's nuclear plant right in the middle of San Jose when they decided to get into the nuclear business. The AEC allowed them to put their plant right in the middle of town, the center of basically our gem in Silicon Valley, and it was actually disgusting. There was no guard at the gate. You could just drive in. You're supposed to go over and talk to people in a little guard shack, but I relate in the book how bad it was.
They did that. The Indian Point nuclear power plant is in the middle of a heavily populated area. There's
That's
nuclear
right.
plants built on fault lines. What are they thinking?
The problem is that it's now so expensive to even run a transmission line into a major city that they're just putting them right near to the cities. It's a matter of money, $30-40 million a mile to get a transmission line through, modern people's backyards and stuff. So they just build them near the cities. The other thing that is really disgusting is how Harry Reid has vetoed the use of the Yucca Mountain Depository that the nuclear people were building for 30 years. They were going to take the rods and store them there. So now all these rods are sitting around in these, reactor centers with a sloppy, not planned for storage system that's very, very deadly. They're right near cities. There's 200 of them basically. And there's nothing to stop a small group from getting inside the fence line and doing tremendous damage, setting off, burning a massive amount of uranium.
Any suggestions in the book as to what we do?
The basic suggestion is we've got to get away from nuclear powered. Just like Germany has closed theirs down and Japan is basically pulling back from it. It's a dead-end fuel supply. You have to take the uranium and change it into plutonium to have anything in the way of more than 50 years. Uranium's going to be gone in 50 years, and they're planning to use plutonium, which is much more deadly. It's actually a horrible, horrible fuel system, and that's what we need to demand, the end to the nuclear age. We have to go to solar and the sustainable power sources.
Easier said than done.
I know, because there's a very large group of people that are backing the nuclear play, and they've got the money invested in it already. And you can see what they're doing. They're just upping the license of these plants that were supposed to be, like Indian Point was supposed to be retired soon, and they're going to give it another 20 or 30 years. They're going to blow. It's as simple as that. They're poorly made to start with. This is 50-year-old technology, and they're now adding plutonium into the uranium because there's so much of it sitting around. If one of those ever blows, it could kill many hundreds of thousands of people.
Well, thanks for the warning.
Next, David Sellers takes us on a walk down memory lane in his book about his adventures with his little brother called Little Truants. David.
I was in the third grade. He was in the second grade. And for whatever reason, we can't to this day figure out what gave us the impulse to do what we did. We just decided to skip school and go out for a day of adventure. We lived in Wilkerson Grace in the shadow of Mount Rainier. But we had this river that went right behind our house. And we went ahead and waited for the school buses to leave. And then we just went along the river and encountered all different kinds of things. Some devil's clubs, a shrubbery with these large thorny spines on it full of venom that will make you hurt like the devil. We had to go through it if we were going to get to the goal that we wanted to slide down this sandy hill was our goal. But what made it worse is my little brother told me that they're sentient and our imagination just went wild and that, they were thinking beings and that their goal was to pierce you, and then once they did, it would get into your center and take away your soul. So that's what my little brother told me, and I believed him. So we had to get through that somehow. So we armed ourselves with some sticks, and we battled them as they swung at us. This was our imagination, of course. As they were swinging at us, we would hit them, and then we would just go on. And then, when we talk about it today, he just laughs. He goes, yeah, we really wore those sticks out.
It sounds like a Stand By Me kind of adventure.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't run across any corpses or anything like that.
What's the message of the book?
Basically stay in school and whatever adventures you might have planned, save it. There's a time for everything. Even though we were watched, we were allowed to go on that so we could learn a valuable lesson. We were supervised along the way, which we didn't know until after it was all over with.
You mean you went on this wonderful adventure and somebody was watching you the whole time?
Yeah, we didn't realize it. But
did you get in a lot of trouble?
And you had a lot more than what a little kid thought that they would. We had to face the full consequences of it. Because there is always a price for everything that we do. Choices. There's always options. We think we know everything, and then we go ahead and do it, and a lot of times impulsively, but then we are in awe of the consequences that we have to pay. Especially today, a lot of people they look at things and why me? Why poor pitiful me? Why is everybody picking on me? Well, it's the options that were there for anybody to choose. It just they chose those ones. They didn't weigh it, or if they did, it was worth whatever price they're willing to pay. There's that side of it. Usually when people do something for others, they have to pay a lot for that, more than what they expected.
Do you regret taking this adventure?
I do not. It brings back wonderful memories, especially the love, that I have for my little brother. That we're still pretty close. We don't see each other as often as I would like, but, because we're both busy, both have families and, careers, that sort of thing, life in general. But we do treasure each other, and we had so many adventures growing up.
So for all the trouble that you caused and the message that you should stay in school and there's a time and a place for everything, you wouldn't have given up this adventure for the world.
No, there's no way. No.
And you got a great book out of it, so there you go.
It's one of the things that shaped me. I appreciate my parents, and the teachers that I had and all of that allowed me to have that experience and the hoops that I had to go through. That's one of the things I just say is that hoops happen.
That's right. Hoops happen, and let's face it, sometimes it's fun to jump through them. Am I right? All right, with that, we are going to take a quick break, but we are coming right back.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you: printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
Welcome back, my Page Publishing Book Club fans. Thank you so much for stopping by tonight. We so appreciate it. Our next author really just wanted to set an historical record straight with his book about a World War II bomber called Hot Stuff. Cassius Mullen in Georgetown, Texas, you wrote Before the Bell.
That is correct.
With your wife, whose name is?
Betty Byron.
Okay.
It is a set of chronicles about a World War II bomber that was the first in the 8th Air Force to complete 25 combat missions. Have you ever heard of the Memphis Belle?
You know what? I believe I have.
There was a movie made in 1990 about a B-17 that supposedly was the first heavy bomber in the 8th Air Force to complete 25 combat missions. That is really not true. The bomber we wrote about is a plane by the name of Hot Stuff that actually completed 25 combat missions months ahead of the Memphis Belle.
What's your connection to this?
We wrote the book in order to honor the plane and its crew as being the first in the 8th Air Force to complete 25 combat missions. But it actually completed 31 when the crew was notified on the 27th of April of 1943 that they had been selected to rotate back to the United States to sell war bonds, go to parades, give speeches and such, basically to raise the morale of the American people. Our book covers the 9-month life of the bomber and what it accomplished in World War II.
And why did you want to write about this?
Let me go back a little bit. I'm a West Point graduate, and I am on the Board of Governors for the West Point Society of Central Texas. And my job there is to set up a monthly luncheon for the society and have a speaker. Back in 2014, one of the members came up with a fellow by the name of Jim Lux, and he gave us a briefing on this plane. And we said, that's fantastic. You ought to write a book. He says, I'm not interested in writing a book. And then we said, well, how about our writing a book about it? He said, fine. And we decided to write the book about this under the auspices that half our proceeds would go toward the erection of a monument in Iceland. And why I say Iceland is when the plane was returning to the United States, it ran into foul weather and it crashed into the mountain, killing 13 people on board. But the plane flew missions out of England and North Africa, and they bombed targets in France, the Netherlands, Germany, all over North Africa, Sicily, and in Italy. We wrote chapter by chapter of every mission the plane flew, and we'd like to take the reader on every mission, because every mission in itself was unique. And I guess it was a labor of love, if you want to use that phrase.
I would definitely use that phrase.
We would like to have the reader take away the story of this plane as a token of all the heroic men and women that fought in World War II.
Well, you know what? I think you accomplished that and more, Cassius. Now, talk about finding inspiration for a book in an unusual way. Carl Fox shares a beautiful story about his wife and their fascinating life together in his book entitled Clee's Odyssey.
My wife died in 2013 with Alzheimer's. And about 3 months after she died, I was looking at her computer and I found all these stories that she had written about her early life in Iran. And I was just blown away with the skill and quality, I guess, of the writing. You know, I knew she was a skilled writer before, but I did not know she did this much writing. Anyway, I decided to organize all this work and put it into a book. She's the first part of the book. And then I filled in some gaps and extended it to cover the rest of our story, which is I feel that we had a fairy tale life. I was on a trip to Iran to install a computer for the Shah for his Air Force, and the man in charge of the computer site, his wife was Iranian, and he said his wife's best friend was from Kansas. That's when he found out, I was from Kansas. So he said, you should meet this woman. And I told him, David, I said, I'm divorced. I've been divorced for 5 years. I will never, ever have anything more to do with any women. But he kept bugging me. And finally, to get him off my back, I said, okay, I'll meet her. So his family and I went to dinner with this woman. I was just blown away by her poise and refinement. And she was way out of my social class and everything. But it turned out we hit it off. And 5 months later, she came to the States, and after visiting her family, she moved in with me in Phoenix. And about 6 months after that, we were married. And after that, we got another assignment back in Iran again. This was a 3-year assignment. And over the last 4 decades, we ended up living most of the time outside of the States, Germany, Holland, Iran, and China. And so that's what the book is about. It's about meeting her. In the letter she wrote to some people, she did express the desire to publish it someday.
It's funny, you were married for more than 4 decades, and you never knew that she had all of these writings hidden away somewhere.
Yeah. When she was first diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2000, we both agreed that she might benefit from taking some college writing courses. And so she enrolled in those, and she showed me once in a while, she showed me a paper, but I had no idea that she had the volume or the quality of her writing that she did. As I say right in the preface of the book, I wrote this mainly for our family. Now, I didn't write it to make money because I didn't think it would be that, it wouldn't appeal to that many people, but I just hope that I sell a few copies to people that are interested in an amazing love story, a fairy tale story. And
it's also a tribute, when you talk about Alzheimer's disease and the devastation of that disease and dealing with that you were able to kind of capture her memories and, pay tribute to her after she died. I mean, that's certainly an interesting angle here. And so many people are dealing with that. And I'm sure that helped you on some level, didn't it? To deal.
It did help me. Yes, it helped me. But I still suffer the grief. I mean, she was an amazing.
Oh, Carl, I'm sorry.
That's okay. She was an amazing woman in every way, and just like Bogey and Bacall, we had it all.
Oh, Carl, you know what? You're lucky to be able to say that. You know, a lot of people can't. Thanks so much. Finally, Angela Smith takes us on an exploration of the great unknown in her book entitled Edge of the Forest. What's your story, Angela?
It's a children's book about two best friends that go on an adventure. The one friend actually initiates it. The other friend's not too sure, but goes along anyway. They live in a small town, like an ordinary little town, and I guess they would actually need some adventure, So
I grew up in a town like that. Where would that town be?
In Montrose. Yeah,
Montrose, Pennsylvania. Yeah, that's kind of out there, huh?
Yeah. They decide one day while going to school that they didn't know much about their world outside of the town there, so they wanted to go explore, but they've always been warned against the dangers out there, you never know what's going to happen. And I guess they just bust out and they want to find out what's on the other side of their town, beyond the trees.
Do they get in any trouble?
Well, for the mischief, they get in trouble, but they actually find out that what they've been told all their little lives, that it wasn't really true. They were just afraid. The townspeople were afraid to go out there because they didn't know what was out there, so they invented stories. And it turns out it's just a meadow beyond the town and trees.
Is this something you might have done as a child?
I might have gotten into trouble with my best friend this way, go on our own little adventures.
What's the moral of the story?
Basically, don't always believe what you hear. You have to explore on your own to an extent. You don't want to cause too much trouble or disobey too much, but sometimes you find good little surprises on the other end of things. Because I just went down one day and I'm like, well, I'm going to try to write a story.
Just out of nowhere?
Well, actually, I got a pamphlet from an online college in Connecticut. I can't remember the name, but they said something about writing a story. I'm like, I might as well do that, because I was thinking about that before, and then I got the pamphlet, so I just started. I actually submitted this book into there, and they accepted it. They only accept 1/3 of their applicants. I'm like, wow, maybe there is something to this book, So I did my research and found a publishing company, and I got it done.
You got it done, and that's saying something right there, Angela. And we got to get out of here, Rob. That is a wrap for this week's edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. Come back next week, same time, same place, right here on 710 WOR. Have a great weekend.